In the first video about Job, we saw that the devil took permission from God to afflict Job, and that he lost all his livestock, he lost all his servants, he lost all his children and his buildings and everything he had. The only thing that didn't touch him was that God told Satan not to touch him personally, physically. And so he was spared at that time. Then in chapter 2 we see that the devil goes back and says, well, it was not enough. Can I do more? And God again gives permission. And we have to see these permissions as tests for the faith of Job. Because you can always brag that you have faith, but the real one is the one that has been tested. Just like you won't put a jewel for sale unless it has been prepared, put through fire, through knife, and made beautiful, just like my wedding ring. So the devil goes again, and this time he afflicts Job with a skin disease. And the choice was smart, obviously, because skin disease affects both you and your looks. So people looking at you will be feeling like your looks have been marred. You don't look like a human being anymore. They feel contagion, and so they would withdraw from you. And also skin disease is usually accompanied with scratching and feeling itching and problems that make you very, very nervous. And that's what we see Job doing. He's now going outside, sitting in ashes that was scratching himself with pebbles. And until that time, we didn't know about his couple. We knew he was a married man, but we never heard anything about his wife. Now, interestingly, this time, the wife comes out, and you can see that she's not sympathetic. She's not a carer, really. She doesn't offer any consolation. She doesn't offer balm or something to rub on the skin. Instead, she tells him, well, curse God and die. And this is symptomatic of a couple that is now struck by the side effect of the disease. And we have to look at it as a challenge. We know that marriage is an engagement for life. You promise to be there for the other person, like it is said customarily, for better, for worse. Now this one, in that case, she was there for better because she had been enjoying the wealth from the husband. She had been enjoying his hard work. She had been enjoying having kids. Now it's turned to worse. And she doesn't feel like she's interested anymore. She's not turned into a murderer, but halfway through, because she's wishing death to the husband. And not only death, but curses against God, which means he would go to hell. And it's a challenge. Many couples end up divorcing when things go wrong. We know a couple, some years ago, the wife was afflicted with a gynecological disease, and the husband was feeling very, very frustrated because he couldn't have encounters with his wife. And he even went to the pastor and said, Pastor, I want to divorce her. Pastor asked why. The man explained, I can't have this, and again, nobody knows when it will end. And the pastor told him, you are married for better, for worse. The man didn't want to know anything. He just banged the door of the church, stopped attending that church, divorced his wife, and went to another church that was more accommodating. Or maybe he didn't tell the church what was going on. So this is a challenge. And it's also a challenge in terms of our relationship with neighbors. What do you do when things go wrong with people around you? Will you leave them? Will you abandon them to their fate? And you can see at the end of the chapter, it is very, very difficult for people to manage that kind of situation. At the end of the chapter, we learn that Job had 3 close friends. They heard about what happened to him, not only the loss of all he had, but also his sickness. And they decided to come, to sympathize with him, the word says, and comfort him. The issue is, are they going to do that? The interesting part, the first part, is that they went there, greeted him, and sat with him for 7 days and 7 nights. They kept quiet, they said nothing. And probably that was the best part of their visit, because we know that when things go very wrong with people coming and opening their mouth to say anything, even the most holy sentences, will not be received easily by people in mourning. And so they listened maybe to his story, but they kept quiet, they said absolutely nothing. And it's only after that Job broke the silence. It was not his friends. They just waited for him to say something. And we're going to see next time what happened next. But remember that marriage is for life. And the example from Job is a challenge to us. We have to remember, God writes his word, inspired people to write his word, to tell us about real situations. We don't pretend that everything is rosy, no. Job was somebody that was devoted to God. He loved God. He prayed always. He prayed not only for himself, his wife, but also his family, his entire family. And people could have said, well, he had been praying for his children every time. Why is it that God allowed it? And that is part of Job's book and his lesson. We pray and we expect that only good things, what we look at as good, will happen. And we see already that Job's prayers concerning his children didn't prevent the children from dying. Just like Abel in Genesis was very close to God. God loved him, and yet God allowed him to be killed. So we remember the lessons we learn. We're going to summarize all of this at the end. Bless you.